Welcome to the very first episode of the Complete Money Playbook. Today we're going to talk about your money dreams. And to me, your dreams about money should not just be about numbers in your bank account. It should be about unlocking limitless possibilities and freedom that life can bring you when you're not worried about how am I going to pay my bills? Or what if not having enough money was not holding you back? What if you had a plan for whatever your definition of wealthy was and not someone else's? So in today's fast-paced world, financial freedom means having the power to live life on your terms. So imagine a life where you're not bound by financial constraints, where your dreams can become your reality. So today we're going to explore some transformative ideas that can turn your financial aspirations into tangible success. So if you're ready to start dreaming obnoxiously big and to start thinking about what could be, then stick around as this is just the beginning of our journey together as I start building out this channel and start showing you what I call the Complete Money Playbook. So if you want to start learning financial literacy right from the beginning, then what we would love for you to do is be able to like our videos, please subscribe to the channel, share this video with friends and family members or anyone you think that might be looking to start learning the basics about all things financial freedom. All right, so life moves pretty fast when you've lost all your money, and actually, I did even worse than that. I lost not only all of my money, but $750,000 of someone else's. So let me give you a little story about how it happened, but even before that, let me give you a little background about me and how my money and financial beliefs were formulated and how I got here. I really want to go back and talk about my dad. So from the time I was a really young kid, I didn't realize it at the time, but my dad did lots of things to basically teach us about money and life, and he tricked us all the time, and we really had no idea. But even before that, just to see where my dad and his brother, they had a sister, and where they came from, his parents were literally born before 1920. And because of that, they basically saw the First World War, the Second World War, the Great Depression. You can imagine what my dad and his brother's financial belief system and what they were thinking about in their financial world. And for some reason, the two of them, after living in housing projects in New York City, and they know what it's like to miss a meal or not have a pair of shoes, they, for some reason, decided we're not going to have a financial life that looks like this. And so eventually, my dad and his brother both ended up in Southern California somehow, and I wish I could ask them both these questions now, but neither one of them is alive anymore. And I want to know what caused them or what helped them learn about money and finance. Because you have to remember, they learned a lot of this in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and you couldn't go to YouTube or the internet or just Google whatever questions you had. They had to figure this stuff out for themselves. So I'm not exactly sure how or what caused them to do this, but all I know is I'm very appreciative that the fact that they did, because I always say in every family, somebody has to be that person that decides, we're going to upgrade and have a better financial life. What would happen is he would teach us all these lessons. And so these lessons turned into quite a few different things and businesses and stuff that started for me from a very young age. So my first business that I ever had was literally in middle school. So like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, a friend of mine, Chris, whose parents happened to be teachers, every week we would go to this store called Pick and Save. And Pick and Save was kind of like a Kmart or a much less nice version of today's, so say, Target or something like that. And what we would do is we would go there, we would buy super inexpensive candy, like we could buy a pack of gum for 15 cents, and then we would sell it at school for 50 cents. So we'd go there, we'd buy all this inventory. We literally carried all our stuff around in vans, shoe boxes, and it was our first real business. And eventually it was kind of funny that middle school shut us down. I didn't think they realized we were only selling candy. I thought they thought we were selling something else. But that was the start of us figuring out ways to make money. My second job, I worked in a fast food restaurant, and I realized working for $3.35 an hour was not a way for me to get too far in life. And really we had managers and full-fledged adults that this was their job and their career. And I'm like, yeah, you know, as much as I wasn't a great student and I was thinking I maybe didn't want to go to college, that was the spot in my life where I knew college was going to be for me. Then my next job, I worked as a busboy in a really fancy restaurant. We made really good money in there. And then when I went to college, I was a bank teller making $10 an hour as a part-time person in the early 90s, which was actually really good money for the time. And what I didn't realize later was it looked really good on a resume because you had to wear a shirt and tie, you were handling lots of money. It was kind of a more respected job than I actually thought it was going to be. And from there, when I graduated with my degree in finance and economics, I actually had 3 different corporate jobs before I became a real estate agent. So let's jump to when I became a real estate agent in 2001. So in 2001, I personally got my real estate license, but my now ex-wife was already in real estate for maybe 4 or 5 years before that. I gave up my corporate job. I worked at IGT in a big corporate area. I had a finance job, and I gave up my benefits, my insurance, the whole 9 yards in order to go into business for ourselves. And so I got my real estate license, and we started on our journey to doing all the right things. And because of my degree in finance and economics, and because all of my history with my parents teaching me about money, we were doing awesome. We were maxing out 401ks, we were doing other retirement accounts, and then when we became self-employed, there were a few other things we could do at that point. And by 2001, we were already on our 3rd house. We'd made a couple of dollars on our first 2 houses. We literally bought a new house before my second, literally a month before my second child was born. Our son was 4. And at that point, Life was great. We were clipping along. Everything was going amazingly well. Our broker of our RE/MAX office that we worked in at that time, somewhere in 2002, 3, 4, I can't remember the exact year, he sold the company. And the new owner that came in, we just kind of knew this was not going to be the guy that was going to work for us. And so we knew we had to start either looking for a new company or starting our own company. And at that time, RE/MAX only had the one office. It was an exclusive deal. And so we couldn't do anything about it. But after a year went by, we were able to open up and start our own company. Unfortunately for us, we didn't know it at the time. We opened up our company in 2005, mid-2006 through sometime in mid-2009, depending on what part of the country you live in and where you are, the Great Recession happened. And it was literally overall almost world economic crisis and disaster. And because of that, all the things that we did in my early and late 20s and in my early 30s all the way up to 2005 literally were destroyed and ruined. And by the time I was 39 years old, I was $750,000 in debt, and to the point where we were almost going to close our real estate company, and we were about to start losing our house and our other assets. Now the plan was, what were we going to do next? The summer of 2009, at least financially for me, was probably the worst time in my entire life. And on top of that, that was the same year my dad was 15 years into having non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He wasn't feeling well. He wasn't doing well. And even with that being said, the previous 9 months before that, we literally made no money. So all these things that you're going to hear us talk about over these next handful of videos about having emergency funds and saving money for the future, all that stuff, was the only reason at that point we hadn't gone fully financially underwater. But even at that time, what he did for me was for July 1st, August 1st, and September 1st of 2009, he wrote me 3 checks that were for the amount of my house payment. And I told him, I said, Dad, this is a bad idea. I'm a bad credit risk. You should not be giving any money to me. I put those 3 checks in a drawer and I never used them. And it's kind of funny. I wish I still had those checks to this day, but I do not. I kind of felt like we were getting to the end of this recession in 2009. It finally happened. And June 22nd, 2009, I sold a house. And from that point to the end of the year, I basically worked every single day. I can't remember exactly how many days in a row it was, but we got ourselves to a position where the last 6 months of the year, at that time, we used to sell about 35 to 45 homes a year. We had a full year worth of business that happened in those 6 months. And now we were on the path to recovery of getting ourselves out of debt and doing all the things that we're going to talk about in all these videos that we're showing here for you guys today. So the reason I talk about that is that for some of you that are in your 20s and 30s watching these videos versus someone that might be in your 40s or 50s, it is not too late. I did all the right things into my late 30s, and then the global financial economic crisis crushed us, and it was not our fault. And then from 39 to my early 50s, we literally went from $750,000 in debt to being multimillionaires. So it's never too late, and I know you can do it too. So if you want to know more about me, you can click the link in our bio that'll send you to the CompleteMoneyPlaybook.com, where you can learn more about me, my financial beliefs, and how we're going to be able to help you. So from that point, here are the questions that I like to ask people to try to figure out what their dream is going to be, what their financial house is going to be. And these are things I really want you thinking about over the next week or two. And the first question I love to ask people is this: what is your definition of wealthy? So if you don't know what game you're playing, you don't know what level you're trying to get to, then you don't know how to start managing your money and doing those kind of things. And everybody's definition is different. You have to figure out what your specific definition is, which leads me right into the next question is, what is making a lot of money to you? For one person, it might be 50 or 100,000. For someone else, it might be $10 million. And this is one of those things where I always joke, you can't copy off your neighbor's paper. You need to figure out where you want to be and how hard you're willing to work. And if you're ready to take a risk or start a business or whatever that is, you've got to get an idea of what game you're playing and what your definition of that is. And with that being said, the next question I'd like to ask you is, what is your confidence level regarding money and finance? Like I said, a lot of people have a hard time asking questions. They don't want to feel like they don't know this because you feel like you're supposed to know. If every month I asked you, do you know where your money's going? Meaning, how much are you making? How much are you spending? Would you even know the answers to those questions? Because if you don't, that is something that we must do and is something we're going to talk about here in the next few videos. But for now, what I want you thinking about is, if your life went perfect and everything went amazing, how much money would you make and what would your financial situation look like? So you only have 4 options of what you can do with money, I would say. You can earn it, you can save it, you can invest it, and you can spend it. And it seems like people these days are really good at spending it. Maybe you're really good at earning it, but really in order to get wealthy, you've got to figure out a way to save it and invest it and have no consumer debt. So what is the roadmap to getting this started, and how do we figure out what the path is to financial freedom? Well, this is what I do, and I can help people like you accumulate what I call everyday wealthy. So it's worth noting, I am of decent intelligence and I am far from a genius, and you don't need to be a genius. The formula honestly is not terribly difficult, but most people just won't follow it. So on a really high level to become everyday wealthy, I want you to do these 2 things to get started. 1, you'd have dreams about your money and think about what would happen if it went perfectly. and you need to identify and formulate a plan about your money reality. And don't worry, I'm gonna show you how to do both. So if you wanna learn more about me and what you can expect from this channel, check out the video right here.